They found the box after he was gone, tucked behind a cracked heater vent in a one-bedroom walk-up 2 blocks from the base. Dust thick as memory. No name on the lease, just M. A. McCallan scribbled in faded ink. The landlord thought it was junk, until someone finally pried it open. Inside, a pair of gloves, worn smooth at the palms, a crumpled envelope, and a citation for distinguished service, signed in '72 by a general with 4 stars and a reputation for never wasting words. Beneath that, a napkin from Ravenwood Air Force Base, folded in quarters, scrawled with 5 words, "Still owe her one more." No one had spoken his name in years. But this story isn't about the end. It's about the day the Hangar forgot who he was, and the rookie who made the mistake of thinking legends come with introductions. It started just after 0600, mist still clinging to the edge of the tarmac, the kind of morning where jet fuel and dew made the whole hangar smell like war stories waiting to happen. The buzz in Bay 4 was louder than usual. Final preps on the experimental prototype, the Falcon 9 variant. A test bird with no margin for error. Maintenance crews in high-vis gear shuffled in and out. Clipboard taps and tired coffee slurps the only rhythm anyone moved to. Until the door creaked open. He didn't fit the scene. Bomber jacket 2 sizes too large, jeans pressed but frayed at the cuffs, and boots that hadn't seen polish in years. White hair buzzed down, more military than civilian, and a step that was slow, deliberate, not out of fragility, but focus. His right hand trembled slightly, nerve damage, maybe age. But his left? Steady as sunrise. No ID badge. No tool belt. No clipboard. Just a man with nowhere urgent to be and eyes that scanned the room like he'd built it himself. "Hey, who let Grandpa wander in here?" Someone chuckled, just loud enough to draw heads. Airman Kyle Jensen, 22, lean, loud, newly promoted. Still believed his rank was a personality. He tossed his wrench onto the workbench and leaned back, watching the old man wander past the wing strut like he owned it. "You looking for the base tour, sir?" Kyle said, his voice syrupy with mock politeness. "The museum's that way. You'll love it. Lots of dusty planes just like you." A few laughs. Not many. Most eyes drifted back to their tasks. But Kyle wasn't done. "Careful," he added. "Trip on something, and we'll all have to file paperwork." The old man didn't look at him, didn't flinch, just kept walking, step by step, toward the Falcon 9, until he stopped near the cowling. There, his hand hovered over the intake panel, not touching, just feeling, like he could hear something no one else was listening for. Kyle rolled his eyes. "All right, seriously, who is this guy?" "Anyone. No badge, no clearance, and he's creeping on a $250 million engine like it's a tractor." Chief Master Sergeant Delaney, 3 decades deep into Air Force maintenance, looked up from his schematic. He squinted at the man near the Falcon. Something flickered across his face. Recognition? Or memory? He stood up slowly. Walked over. "Sir," Delaney said, calm and firm. "You lost." The old man finally looked at someone. Not Kyle. Not the rookies. Just Delaney. And when he spoke, it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it cut through the bay like an order over radio static. "She's still off balance. Core 3. It's not vibration, it's bleed." Delaney blinked. "You know that how?" The old man pointed to the underside of the turbine housing. "That port's running hotter than the rest. But the real tell's in the noise. You've all tuned it out, but she's been trying to tell you for weeks." Kyle barked a laugh. "What? You got super hearing, old man." Delaney didn't laugh. He was already walking back to the diagnostics console. He punched in a manual readout. Seconds passed. Numbers rolled across the screen. Core 3 bleed pressure, elevated. Way elevated. The room shifted. Kyle's smile faltered. The old man stepped back, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just spotted what 10 rookies and 4 computers missed. Delaney turned slowly. "Name, sir." He just shrugged. "Doesn't matter. She remembers me." Kyle stepped forward, frowning. "Look, we've got protocols. You can't just walk in and do your job." The old man finished for him. Still not angry. Just tired. Didn't come to make noise. Came to listen. Kyle turned red. "You got a name? Or do we just call you Prophet of Pratt and Whitney?" That's when the badge came out. Not flashy. Not even modern. A laminated USAF Tech credential from 1983. Faded but real. Beneath it, a name none of them recognized, except Delaney. He swallowed. "McCallan." Kyle blinked. "Who?" Delaney stepped in. That man built the early diagnostic architecture for turbine resonance, the first guy to ever recalibrate a core mid-flight. They used to call him the Whisperer, because he listened to the engines like they talked back. McCallan didn't react. He'd already turned to walk away. But not before Kyle muttered, too quiet for anyone but the closest to hear. Must have been a long time ago. McCallan paused. Then, with a small grunt, he took off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and walked straight toward the Falcon's engine. No gloves. No manual. Just a toolbox someone didn't see him pick up. There was no announcement. No order barked across the bay. No need. Because when a man like McCallan rolls up his sleeves and walks toward a Falcon 9 like it's an old friend instead of a $1,000,000 mystery, the room quiets on its own. Conversations die mid-sentence. Heads turn, hands freeze mid-task. And even the whir of portable fans sounds subtly out of place. Kyle stood frozen, eyes flicking between McCallan and the engine like he was waiting for someone, anyone, to explain what was happening. No one did. The old man stopped at the side panel, near the bleed intake. No tools yet. Just ice. They didn't dart around. They lingered. He wasn't looking for problems. He was remembering where they were hiding. Then came the first move. He reached for a small release tap. Obsolete on newer engines. But this one had been a hybrid. The Falcon 9 was built using 3 different prototypes. McCallan popped it without hesitation. No forcing, no scraping. Just pressure, pivot, lift. Hey. Kyle finally blurted, stepping forward, trying to sound official but failing. That panel's restricted access. You can't just. Shoo. Delaney said quietly, not even turning. Just watch. McCallan set the cover aside gently. Inside, rows of interlocked plates shimmered with a slight bronze tint, signs of heat fatigue. Barely visible. You'd have to know exactly what to look for. And he did. He reached in, bare hands, and touched the inner flange. Not a tap, a hold. Fingers pressing lightly, then turning, testing torque by feel alone. Someone whispered, "He's not even wearing gloves." "He doesn't need to," Delaney muttered. With slow, precise movements, McCallan rotated the pressure collar 2 degrees counterclockwise. Then paused. Let the mechanism settle. Like he was listening for a heartbeat. One bolt loosened. Then another. The intake coil exposed. He removed it like it was delicate glass, though everyone in the room knew that piece usually needed a press tool and 2 techs to dislodge. Kyle opened his mouth again. Closed it. For once, he had no script. McCallan examined the coil. One small ridge, burnt. The sort of defect diagnostics might flag as noise. But to a hand trained over decades of vibration, friction, and flow, it spoke volumes. "It's not the mount that's misaligned," he said calmly. "It's the bypass port. Whoever installed it forgot to neutral torque the bracket. That's why she's been screaming." The room went silent. Because someone had forgotten. And no one, not even the computer, had caught it. He turned to the tool cart and, without asking, pulled a manual torque spanner. Not the fancy new model, the old one. The kind with no battery. Just tension and trust. McCallan stepped back to the housing and adjusted it by feel. One motion. One half-breath. The bracket clicked. The coil receded. He didn't celebrate. Didn't even blink. Instead, he whispered, "Better." And those who were close enough heard it. The subtle shift in airflow. The hum in the bleed line changed pitch. Just enough to notice. Just enough to prove it. Delaney was already pulling up a new diagnostic sweep. "If this works," he muttered. Numbers appeared. Stable. Balanced. Bleed pressure dropped 9%. Well below threshold. The issue that had grounded the Falcon 9 for 3 weeks, solved. In silence. In minutes. With no manual, no laptop, and no excuses. Kyle just stared. McCallan replaced the cover, locked it down, then wiped his hands on a faded cloth from his back pocket. He hadn't rushed. Hadn't shown off. He hadn't said more than 20 words. But in those few minutes, he had dismantled and reassembled a jet engine module that most of the crew still struggled to spell correctly, let alone fix. And then, he started walking away. "Wait," Kyle said, voice smaller now. How did you know all that?" McCallan turned back slowly. His face didn't carry pride. Just patience. And the kind of weariness you earn when no one believes you until it's too late. "I wrote the original diagnostic protocols for that engine," he said simply. "Before they automated them. Before they forgot why we checked by hand." Kyle blinked. You wrote them?" Under Project Mercury Delta, 92 to 95, McCallum nodded. Helped redesign the core balancer after the Phoenix test bird flamed out on descent. Kyle's face turned pale. The Phoenix flameout was legend. A crash that nearly killed 5. Only a few senior engineers had survived that program. Fewer still had walked away and kept working. And this man fixed the very system that failed back then? Why didn't you say something? Kyle asked, softer now. Why not tell us who you were? McCallum looked him over, not cruelly. Just honestly. Would you have listened? Silence. The bay doors opened then. Someone had called in base ops. A full briefing was about to be written. Delaney was already on the comms. Others scrambled to archive the real-time telemetry data from the engine module, now stabilized. But McCallum? He picked up his jacket, slipped it on, buttoned only the middle, the same way he always had. Then he turned back once more to Kyle, who hadn't moved. There's a difference, McCallum said, between memorizing systems and understanding machines. You learn that, and you'll do just fine. And with that, he walked out. No salute, no sign-off. Just a slow, steady walk back toward the edge of the hangar, where stories are never told, only earned. By the time the after-action report was filed, the engine was running cleaner than it had since its test phase arrival. The system recalibration confirmed every adjustment. No overheating, no bleed issues. The core's rhythm matched spec models perfectly. And yet, what no one could explain, on paper at least, was how a man with no clearance, no tools, and no rank had done in 15 minutes what weeks of diagnostics couldn't. McCallum was gone by then. He hadn't waited for a thank you, didn't ask for access, didn't so much as sign the visitor log. He just left, same way he came in, quietly, like someone who had nothing left to prove and no interest in being known. But the hangar didn't forget. The rookies fell silent for the rest of the day, their usual laughter replaced by a tension no one spoke aloud. Not guilt exactly. Something heavier. Recognition. Not of McCallum himself. They still didn't know his first name, but of what he represented. Kyle Jensen sat alone after shift, elbows on the metal bench outside Bay 4, watching the last of the light bleed through the storm shutters. He didn't look angry. He looked like someone finally hearing what he'd been too loud to notice. Delaney found him there, holding a wrench he hadn't used all day. I found the name, Delaney said, sitting beside him. Malcolm A. McCallum. He was part of the Mercury Delta Blackbird team. Helped prototype the early Falcon models. Got pulled in to write the hand calibration manuals before we automated. Kyle didn't respond. He was also injured in a turbine blowback in 95. Saved 2 crewmen. Took shrapnel to the spine. Refused a pension upgrade. Said the money belonged to the widows. Kyle swallowed. He just walked in here like. He still belonged, he finally said. Delaney nodded. That's because he did. Silence stretched between them. You think he'll come back? Kyle asked quietly. No, Delaney said. I think he already gave us what we needed. And in the days that followed, the hangar changed. Not with speeches, not with meetings, but with the small things. The younger airmen started double-checking torque specs. Not because they didn't trust the sensors, but because they'd watched a man trust his hands more than a screen. A faded black and white schematic of the Falcon 9 bleed system appeared on the wall of Bay 4. No one claimed responsibility, but everyone noticed the initials in the corner, MN. Someone else placed a worn rag on the corner of the toolbox. Folded, well-stained, left untouched. Even Kyle changed. He started showing up early. Not because anyone told him to, but because the first thing McCallum had done was walk in at dawn, not to be seen, but to listen. One afternoon, a sealed manila folder showed up on Delaney's desk. No return label. Inside, McCallum's full service file, photocopied. One sticky note on top. Figured someone should remember. That's enough for me. A few weeks later, Command cleared space in the crew break room to mount a plaque. No rank, no portrait. Just a simple engraved piece of brushed steel. In honor of Malcolm A. McCallum. He listened when others scanned. Bay 4, forever his hangar. They didn't call it a ceremony. Just a lunch hour where no one talked too loud and no one dared sit in McCallum's old seat by the Falcon 9 module. Kyle was the last one out that day. He stood at the plaque for a long while. Then, without fanfare, he tucked a folded wrench beneath it. No note. He didn't need one. 2 months later, Ravenwood Base welcomed a new batch of recruits. During orientation, one of the senior instructors paused at Bay 4. He pointed to the Falcon 9, then to the plaque. You'll hear a lot of stories while you're here, he said. Some about war, some about tech. But this one, he tapped the plaque. This one's about humility. The kind you don't get from medals. The kind that walks into a hangar, listens to the engine, and fixes what pride forgot to see. One recruit raised his hand. Was he a general or something? The instructor smiled. No, he was just a mechanic. One who never stopped being one. Later that year, a new base mechanic found a small object tucked behind the intake of the Falcon 9. A napkin, folded in quarters. On it, 5 words. Still owe her one more. It was placed in the main briefing room, beside the original prototype blueprint of the Falcon's bleed system. Unframed. Just pinned there. Because McAllen never asked to be remembered. But they did anyway. He didn't speak to prove himself. He didn't fix the engine to be thanked. He just listened, saw what others missed, and walked away. And now, every bolt turned in Bay 4 feels a little heavier, because it carries the silence he left behind. If you believe legacy isn't built with noise, but with work, like and subscribe. And remember, real respect doesn't shout. It shows up early, listens carefully, and gets the job done.